Hello and welcome to our latest live edition of the Euro 2020 show with me, Mark Broadhurst. We've got Rory Petre joining us today, and also we've got our French writer for OTB, Liam Wraith, joining us for the second time, I think, on the show, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the second
good
time.
stuff. Yeah, great. But obviously this time France have been eliminated, which we'll come on to a little bit later on. So let's get started with obviously the results of the games from the quarterfinals. Starting on Friday, we had two games. We had Switzerland v Spain, which ended in a 1-1 draw after 120 minutes, and then Spain won 3-1 on penalties. Then we had the late game, which was Italy winning 2-1 against Belgium. Then on Saturday, we had the Danish Dynamite Danes. They got a 2-1 win over surprise package, really, of the tournament, Czech Republic 2-1. And then the big one on Saturday evening was England's thrashing of Ukraine 4-0. The kind of the title push is gaining momentum with every game that goes by, and maybe Rory's prediction of England making the final could potentially come true as well. So we're going to start off today's with a kind of roundup of the games from the quarterfinals. So let's start with the Friday games. I mean, obviously the first one was Switzerland v Spain. Rory, do you think Spain deserved to win that one on penalties?
Well, on the balance of 120 minutes, just about. It's amazing how long ago these games already feel, to be fair, as everything kind of merges into one, doesn't it? But yeah, I think having watched the game, I thought they just about deserved to win. Obviously, they had a few decent chances to finish the game, either in 90 or 120 minutes, but. And then obviously it got off, the penalty shootout itself got off to the worst possible start for them because they missed their first one and Switzerland scored. So they were 1-0 down. So they did well to pull it around in the end. And despite the heroics of Jan Sommer, obviously Bundesliga's finest, he obviously played a big part in the fact that Switzerland were able to get 2 penalties, and they played a big part in this tournament. But I think obviously they were missing Granit Xhaka, who for Switzerland is a key cog, keeps things ticking over, and as a tournament, he's done well, and it seems to have got himself a move as well by the looks of it. So yeah, Switzerland play their part, but I think Spain just about on merit got through deservedly. But penalties obviously is ultimately a bit of a gamble. Obviously, you never know what's going to happen in pens, but yeah, they're through deservedly so. Just I would say, but I wouldn't fancy their chances against Italia.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they are definitely second favourites going into that game. And Liam, what did you make of the red card for Freuler? I mean, obviously it didn't really kind of become like a major incident because he still took it to penalties, but do you think that was a correct decision?
Yeah, probably so on the basis of things. I think you see those given more often than not. I think on the basis of the game, as you said, with the way Switzerland played inside, I think it was, around the 80th minute that Freuler got sent off. On the basis of things, Spain probably deserved to win, but the one thing I would say is I wasn't too impressed with their inability to finish in front of goal. I know that Sommer made a lot of saves, as you said. That's probably one of the best games he'll play in his career in terms of saves. But a lot of the saves were in close proximity to him. They're not exactly ones where he's picking them out of the top corner. There were a couple world-class saves, and Sommer's a good goalkeeper. But in terms of the difficulty of the saves, I don't think in terms of making him go to his limits like we know he can do, I don't think he was pushed completely in terms of where the shots. There were a lot of shots straight at him or that he could save with his feet. I just think, as Rory said, in terms of going against Italy, I don't fancy Spain in front of goal. I think they can score 5 and then they can score none because obviously the goal came through a Dennis Zakaria own goal. So I don't know. Spain are an interesting one. I'm surprised they've made it this far. But then again, this tournament's been so bizarre. So, yeah, probably a red card, but I don't think it impacted things too much. Spain just didn't look like scoring.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to touch a little bit more on kind of Spain's performance in the tournament because obviously they have made the semi-final, which a lot of people didn't predict. But what have you made of them, Rory? Do you think they deserve to really be in the semi-final, or do you think they've been a little bit lucky, really?
Well, they've been technically speaking in the hardest section of the draw. There's been obviously a lot of big teams in that side of the draw. With regards to their group, obviously they didn't win the group. So obviously Sweden won their group, so in normal circumstances that would be seen as a failure. Obviously they did enough to qualify with an impressive win in the last group game. That's when you kind of thought they might actually start ticking along a little bit more, scoring some goals, and we're looking quite good. But their defence, I think by the sounds of it, Pau Torres is the second choice kind of option with regards to the centre back pairing. I think you've got, what was it, Ruben Diaz, not Ruben Diaz, the two other lads who have been playing instead of Pau Torres, and he played the other day, and I think that it just kind of upsets their rhythm a little bit. They've interchanged with Jordi Alba. I think he had COVID at one stage, so that again upset their rhythm. Their goalkeeper obviously had that mistake against Croatia, so that again kind of puts a bit of pressure on them. They've got some big names in terms of the areas that they've left players out. Obviously, no David De Gea, for example, no Sergio Ramos, for example. But for a young squad, I think they've actually done quite well. Semi-finals, considering how they've performed, and all they're really missing is that clinicality, as mentioned by Liam. So if they had that, then you'd probably be, everyone would be chirping about how amazing Spain are again. But it's just that maybe that lack of clinicality at the top end, and maybe a bit of the softness at the back as well. So we'll see how it all comes along when they ultimately are tested the most against Italy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, they've got the pedigree in this tournament. They won it in 2008 and 2012. Obviously, a disappointing. I think it was actually Italy that beat them in 2016 as well. So obviously, they're going to be a little bit worried. But I think this is going to be like the fourth meeting in the last 4 Euros with Italy v Spain. So yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting one. That's for sure. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the predictions for that Italy-Spain a bit later. But let's just see what we think about the game between obviously Belgium and Italy. I mean, obviously it ended in a 2-1 win for the Italians. I thought this was a really, really good game, personally. I thought the Italians were really, really good, especially in the first half. Would you agree with that, Liam? Do you think they deserve to win the game?
Yeah, I mean, I predicted that Belgium would win that game, and again, I'd had questions over Italy in terms of the quality of the opponent that they'd faced, but then when they played Belgium, I think that's just made me realise that they are a really good side and probably the favourites for the tournament in terms of the way they control games, they frustrate teams, and then when they're playing against lesser opposition or teams who are more willing to sit back, they can go and score 3 goals. It's like they've got a really well-drilled side, but the ability to put teams away without really seeming to get out of first or second gear, which seems to be the nature of a winning team. Obviously, in the knockout stages, it's been a bit more difficult with a step up in opponents. Austria were a bit of a banana skin, but they managed to get over that in extra time. So I was impressed with Italy against Belgium. I think Belgium towards the end looked like they were in disbelief that they could win. I think you saw De Bruyne's body language, and Lukaku was trying everything and no one was playing off him, nothing was working. When it got to that stage, I think it was always kind of obvious that Italy were going to win, but with Barrea playing really well, Immobile bursting back to life after being on the floor injured when the goal went in, all that sort of thing. Italy looked good, I must admit. I've been very impressed with Italy, and as I'm sure we'll talk about in predictions, I fancy them to do well in the remainder of the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think they've been one of the teams that have impressed me the most throughout the tournament. As you say, the Austria game, they struggled, but I thought at the end of the day, every team has like one dodgy game in a tournament, don't they? I think the other games have just like cruised through them, really. And I agree that I think they were far better than Belgium. Probably after the first few minutes, obviously, Donnarumma made a couple of really good saves, didn't he, from De Bruyne and Lukaku. But I think after that, once he got the first goal, there was only ever one winner. And I thought the penalty was a little bit soft as well, to be honest with you. It's one of them that, he knows he's lost control of the ball and he just kind of kicks it forward and then just looks for any contact, doesn't he? I mean, nowadays they tend to get given, but at the end of the day, in a European Championship quarterfinal, I think it's a bit harsh to get done with one of them, in all honesty, I think, that's for sure. But it's, and Rory, I just wanted to ask about what you think about Belgium, because obviously they've got a really, really good squad. They've got world-class players everywhere. Would you say the tournament's been a failure for them, or do you think it's still been a progression overall?
It probably is a failure, isn't it? Being honest, they've been lauded as having a bit of a golden generation, much like we referred to our older England side with the likes of Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, like Ferdinand. Obviously, the list is endless with the amount of great players that we had as an England team and the so-called golden generation. But unless you win something, obviously it depends what kind of nation you are. Really, if you're North Macedonia, it's success being at the tournament. Full stop. Of course, it is. But for teams like Belgium and England, if you fail to win the competition, it's a failed campaign, really. They've got, like you mentioned at the start of the tournament, and when we're doing our predictions, you did say that Belgium have got a bit of an aging profile.
Yeah.
And now or never, or obviously the World Cup's really not far away now, is it? They've got another crack at that, I suppose. Vertonghen, Alderweireld, Vermaelen. I couldn't even believe he was playing, to be fair. But he did pop up with a goal, didn't he? I think at one stage. So obviously they've got plenty of talent throughout the team. They've got some exciting prospects. That Doku looks very, very tasty. Obviously, he won the penalty, which you correctly said was a bit soft. But I had Lukaku as top goal scorer, so I wasn't complaining when he took it and scored. But ultimately, he's come up short for me, so not good news in that regard. I think you have to say it's a failure, don't you? We'll see that they'll probably be one of the tournament favourites for the World Cup next year, and probably quite rightly so. But until you get over the line, you're always going to have that mental block. And they've got proven winners, across that team. Obviously, the likes of De Bruyne and Lukaku have just won their respective league titles. Came up short against a very well organised and exciting Italian team. So at the end of the day, not quite enough for Belgium.
Yeah, and obviously the Wigan connection as well with Roberto Martinez. Martinez is the all-time god at Wigan, obviously. And this ironically was a matchup of Roberto Mancini against Roberto Martinez for the first time since the 2013 FA Cup final as well. So it was quite a big game for Wigan fans in the hearts, But obviously this time Martinez came out the wrong end of the result. Obviously compared to in 2013. But Liam, do you think Martinez is the man to continue to lead them forward? Because I've heard kind of different opinions on whether his tenure has been a failure or not. Because, obviously it has been a real golden generation, but they've never gone beyond a semi-final of a major tournament with this team.
I think Belgium are a weird one, to be honest, because as you say, this is a golden generation when they've got players like Eden Hazard, Romelu Lukaku, De Bruyne, the list goes on. But Belgium are a really small nation, and before these crop of players came through, nobody really ever expected them to get towards the latter end of tournament. So I think the Belgian people will look at it, not that I know, but this is the opinion that I'd get from it. They'll look at it in terms, we're getting to World Cup semi-finals. This is something that's never happened to us before, finishing third at a World Cup. That's quite a big thing for them. But as you say, in terms of with the players they've got, in terms of the fact that Vermaelen's still getting in the squad,
Mm.
it feels a little bit. Well, I'm just thinking there's young players like Marco Cana who aren't even getting a look in, yet Thomas Vermaelen's still getting in the squad. It just looks a bit weird. And then, in terms of the fact they got knocked out in the quarterfinals when they've got Hazard, I know Hazard's declined a little bit, but even still, they've got players like Dries Mertens, Jeremy Doku on the bench. Italy are a good side, we've mentioned that already, but I don't think Martinez has done a stellar job this tournament. I think what he did at the World Cup was very good. The France game, the 1-0 game, was very close, decided by a Samuel Umtiti header. So, again, fine margins, but this tournament, I don't see why he would continue, but going on what I reckon Belgium fans will be thinking, that he'll be given the next tournament because he's progressed the footballing interest in Belgium as a country. So I think we'll give him another tournament based on that.
Yeah, and I think obviously another really big thing as well is the fact that like the football he plays really good. Like for me, they're one of my favourite teams to watch as an international team, Belgium. I think obviously they just attack. But I agree that like maybe I think it was a bit controversial in the Belgian kind of media as well. The fact that he didn't call up some of the younger players because they've got a couple of players from Club Brugge as well. I think who are quite promising, and they were kind of left behind in favour of the likes of Vermaelen, as you say. Even Vertonghen is like, let's be honest, is a shadow of the player he was at one time, and he's 35 playing at Benfica nowadays. You know, he probably didn't have the best of tournaments, in all honesty. But yeah, I definitely think there's still optimism. They're still producing quality players. You know, it seems to be a really good feeder league, the Belgian Jupiler League, doesn't it? So I mean, it's. Yeah, I definitely think there's reason for them to continue. I think Martinez plays good football with them, but it's just about going that next level, isn't it, and winning one of those massive games, beating a like of France and Italy in a big tournament, you know. I mean, obviously, as England fans, we know how hard it is to win those kind of games, you know. I mean, I think the win over Germany the other week was like the biggest win we've ever had in my lifetime, to be honest with you, in an international team, you know, in a big tournament, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't ever remember us beating one of those kind of sides before in a tournament since the 90s when I was kind of started following football, really, you know. So it's it's a massive result really for obviously England, but Belgium need to kind of get that result as well to get over the line and start believing that they can beat these kind of powerhouse nations in tournaments. But I would agree. I don't think it's been a failure. I think they played good football. I don't think they were bad against Italy. I just think Italy were better myself, you know, and Italy for me have been the most complete side in the tournament. So I also think draws are quite important in these tournaments as well. You know, at the end of the day, they've not had the luck of the draw. Really, they played an Austria side. Sorry, they played obviously Portugal in the last 16, which was a tough test, wasn't it, as well? They managed to come through that one, and then they end up with Italy. And if they'd have won that, they'd have ended up with Spain. So sometimes the luck of the draw just isn't with you, is it? And I think sometimes it is a case of that, really, you know. Okay, so let's move on to obviously the Saturday games now. So yeah, we'll start before the big one. We'll talk about the 2-1 win for Denmark over Czech Republic. So, Rory, do you think Denmark deserved this win?
I do. Yeah, I think they played a good game. Some of the football that they played is actually really impressive, and obviously, you know, without going back to the major horrible incident that we've all seen and talked about enough with regards to Christian Eriksen, the fact that they have gone on to play such good football without their talisman, and seeing players step up to the mark, you've seen how much it means to them as a nation. Not only doing it for Eriksen and obviously the emotion there, I think just the emotion of actually doing it for themselves. I saw a few videos of the reaction after the game. I think it was Højbjerg was reduced to tears. So that's amazing to see, and I think they thoroughly deserve to be where they are. But again, I kind of probably touch on what you said, Mark, with regards to opportunity, and Belgium were handed a rough way into the finals, weren't they? Like you said, Portugal, then Italy is, that's no easy feat to get through either game. So they stumbled, and it's just one of those things. Denmark have taken their opportunities with the draw that they've been given, and they managed to squeak through the group stages. And on the base of play, I thought they deserved to win the game. One moment I have to touch on is the assist for the second goal. That cross, I'm sure that cross has been shared across social media a number of times. Absolute filth of an assist. The fact that he's had to go with it, obviously with his stronger foot, so he's curling it, with the outside of his boot. The purchase, the curl, the accuracy is superb. So I thought that was amazing, and obviously finished off to make it 2-0. And at halftime, you're thinking, yeah, probably game over, and Denmark will see it through. And yeah, obviously they did do it in the end. They secured the win. Happy days for them. They've got a huge semi-final now, obviously against England. So I think they've done really well, and they can be incredibly proud of their tournament so far. And who says it's going to end at the semi-finals, because they'll certainly believe. They'll know the threat and danger that England pose, but I think they've now got themselves into a set formation. They know how they're going to play, and they've got confidence in that. So yeah, it'll be an intriguing and probably horrible watch on Wednesday. But yeah, either way round, Denmark have done superbly well.
Yeah, and I've got to say, Rory, I don't know if you remember from the prediction shows, guys, I did predict Denmark to make the semi-final, and I think you and Dave looked at me like I was crazy, but there you go.
I think so, yeah.
But I think it was the only prediction I got right in the whole tournament, to be honest with you. So, yeah. But yeah, and Liam, which players have really stood out for Denmark? Because obviously they're not the team with the biggest names in the world, especially since the tragedy that happened to Eriksson. He was obviously their big name. Which players have really stood out for you from that Danish side?
I think going from a League One background, Kasper Dolberg in the last couple of games has really stood up and taken notice from people. I think Dolberg came to Nice with a massive price tag. Nice had been bought out by one of Britain's richest people in Sinclair, I think it is, Ineos anyway, bought out Nice, and everyone expected the arrival. Patrick Vieira manager, and then Dolberg came in for £25 million, and it never really took off. I mean, he struggled with injuries, and he's had good spells, particularly at the back end of the season. He scored twice against Lyon, unfortunately. But Dolberg stood up really. I think his 3 goals in 2 games really show you the sort of striker he is able to be, and how he was when he came through under Peter Bosch at Ajax. So Dolberg, and then for another one for Denmark, I think Damsgaard's really one of those breakout players that people probably didn't know a lot about before the tournament. And with his ability to beat a man, he can pass, he can shoot, he can dribble. He looks like one of those all-doing, all-seeing attacking midfielders, which I'm sure lots of teams around Europe would be looking for. So I've been very impressed with Damsgaard as well. And also, one of the players of the tournament for me, Joachim Mæhle at left back, has been incredible. Definitely in team of the tournament for me at left back. Spinazzola's been very good as well, but it'd have to be Mæhle for me at left back, 100%. The way he just finds space, like he's overlapping runs, he's always an out ball, and even if they try to take him out of the game, he always finds a way to get away from his man. And then, as Rory said, with that incredible assist, it's not the first time we've seen that, with him getting into that area behind his man and crossing the ball and assisting. So I think Mæhle's probably been the standout player for Denmark. But again, as you said, they've got a very good side and will be a test for England.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to mention Mæhle as well. I mean, for me, he's been one of the players of the tournament, and he's got to be a shoe-in, really. Obviously, Spinazzola got injured, I think, against Belgium, so he's definitely going to miss the rest of the tournament. So, obviously, I would imagine he probably will. With a good performance against England, he should be like a shoe-in for that team of the tournament kind of honour, really, I guess. Yeah, and obviously, Rory, from a Bundesliga perspective, Patrick Schick, 5 goals in the tournament. Obviously, we weren't overly impressed with him, were we, on the Bundesliga show? We thought he had a pretty average season, with only getting 8 goals for a free score in an attacking Leverkusen side. Do you think there's a chance that he might get a big move, though, in the summer? Because a lot of people are talking about him going to the Premier League, or to even some of the big Spanish clubs, or PSG.
I don't think so, because I think any club that has any kind of proper scouting setup or whatever will have seen or have knowledge of what happened in the Bundesliga last season. And so what that is that Schick had a decent start to the season, very good in a free-scoring Leverkusen side who had a fantastic start. He then went off the rails, as did Leverkusen. So his form did drop. That's not taken away from the fact that he's a very talented player. And when he's got a system and a setup around him, he can and probably will thrive. But I think, given the fact that he scored some goals, what will probably happen is he'll probably go under the radar because he plays the Czech Republic. And from Bayer Leverkusen point of view, that's probably good. And obviously the fact that he's under contract for another 4 years, I think. So that ultimately adds value to the players, transfer fee. I think there are other players that are probably more attractive and maybe command less of a transfer fee perhaps at this moment, but you never know. Obviously me and Mark don't want to see players leave the Bundesliga, because I think if he uses the form and the momentum he's got, he can have a brilliant season and go on from there. Because what is he, 25? I think he's around that age anyway. So, he's got so much room to improve his game. Having a good Euros is a fantastic kind of selling point for him, but I think he'll just want to concentrate on his form for Leverkusen and push them back up in the right direction. But yeah, there might be some clubs sniffing around, because they always are.
Yeah, and I think it does surprise me a little bit that he's being kind of touted so much, because obviously he has had a big move early in his career. He was at Roma and it really didn't work out for him there at all. Like, I think obviously to Premier League fans, he's something of a new kind of he's the new kid on the block, really. A lot of people didn't know him, but obviously on the continent, he's actually been pretty well known for probably 4 or 5 years now, really. Like last year, he spent the year on loan at RB Leipzig when they had that really good run to the semi-final of the Champions League. He was part of that side, So it's not like he's and then obviously he got the big, for some reason I was a little bit surprised that RB Leipzig didn't make that move permanent, because I thought he was really good in the year on loan there. Obviously Leverkusen kind of jumped ahead of the queue, but he was a bit disappointing. But I guess he was injured early in the campaign, wasn't he? And then obviously he came back in the side when Leverkusen were just completely off form. So maybe we could see a big season from him in the Bundesliga next year, potentially. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to obviously the big one from an England perspective, which was indeed England's 4-0 win over the Ukraine. I mean, the main thing I want to know from you, Liam, on this one is, was that a case of England being really outstanding, or Ukraine just being way out of the depth at a quarter-final stage of a tournament, do you think?
I think you've got to take both into account, really. I don't think Ukraine really got their game plan right at all. I think we've watched Ukraine this tournament and see them as a team that aren't really afraid to go forwards. They're happy to leave themselves a little bit exposed at the back with their inexperienced centre-back partnership, knowing that with the quality like Yaremchuk, Yarmolenko, Sigankov, Malinovsky and Zinchenko in that forward area, that they can really punish teams, which they have done to an extent at the tournament. I thought for Ukraine to get to the quarterfinals of a major tournament is a massive achievement, something that Shevchenko will probably be getting a lot of praise for back in Ukraine. But England were good. I'm not going to take anything away from the performance. I've been a bit critical over the fact that we've been a bit boring to watch. But then again, if you're boring to watch and you're getting results, who really cares? But I think England, that's the first real statement performance we've seen. Obviously, Germany was a big win, but even still, there were times at that where they were cutting through us. We were solid defensively. The midfield bossed the game. We were better in forward areas. I think it's worth noting that 2 of the goals came from set pieces, and obviously Southgate likes to base England's success on set pieces. We scored most of our goals at the World Cup based on set pieces, so it's no surprise that that's coming to effect later in the tournament. Obviously, as a Liverpool fan, it was great to see Henderson get his first England goal. I'm happy with the result. Obviously, you can't beat winning 4-0 at a major tournament in the quarterfinals, playing a semi-final against probably out of the 4 teams left the most favourable opponent. No disrespect to Denmark, so you're probably happy with that going into that. But then again, I think we just need to temper expectations a little bit. We've beaten Denmark 4-0. We've beaten Ukraine 4-0. We've beaten Germany 2-0. Worth noting, as you guys, I'm sure, are aware, they're not the greatest Germany team we've seen for a while, despite the fact it's being Germany. So, again, 2 results good, but this reminds me a little bit of Croatia, where everyone's saying England are capable of beating this Denmark team, which, yeah, we are. And then obviously people are getting excited. It's coming home, obviously. We all love that. But I just want us to calm down a little bit and respect Denmark as opponent, because some people seem to think we're in the final already. Denmark aren't going to be any easier team, even if we've got the Wembley crowd behind us. I do expect Denmark to give us a good game. And again, there's a little part of me that feels that they could beat us.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking that as well. This reminds me very much of the semi-final against Croatia back in 2018, because I remember a lot of England fans were just saying this is like a foregone conclusion. You know, they're too old, the Croatian side. We've got more quality. We're playing better than them. And then obviously I remember, I think it was Modric that said they use that as motivation as well. Yeah. Obviously, they didn't need more motivation really, but they use it as that final push that got them over the line in the end. You know what I mean? Because obviously, I think the English arrogance is something they talk about a lot on the continent. You know what I mean? Which I can kind of understand in many ways. You know, I think part of it is just like the kind of British character. You know, we have this humor and I think some people don't always understand that on the continent. You know what I mean? But like, they think it's coming home is like an arrogant chant. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like, it's a bit like, you know what I mean? It is a bit arrogant, but at the same time, it's a bit of a joke, because we've seen so many failures over the years. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people like on the continent, they think it's like English arrogance, saying like, oh, we're certain to win it and things, you know. But yeah, I definitely think, yeah, the Danish, they won't be a pushover, that's for sure. But yeah, Rory, would you agree, or do you think England are like really, really playing well now, and that they look big favourites to win it, would you say?
So I'm usually very positive about England. It's just in my nature, I think. I agree that there are probably extenuating circumstances that probably led to the game being easier than maybe it could have been. I also agree that Ukraine probably got their game plan wrong, but I think that was probably the only game plan that they could have gone with, which in my head is that they keep the game 0-0 as long as possible. England get nervy. They either try and score a goal in 90 minutes or take it to penalties, which obviously is all they can do, because with regards to quality, England are head and shoulders above them. Like, again, and that's not an English arrogance sort of thing. That is just, you know, pure cold hard facts. So the fact that England scored after 4 minutes, you know, game plan then is out the window. They tried to, obviously, they kept it tight until half time, and there are a few nervy moments, but obviously after the early second goal in the second half, I think it was pretty much a formality. It felt uncomfortably comfortable watching England in a quarter-final and winning with such ease. It was really a different experience. With regards to obviously England as a whole, and obviously the defensive kind of positions and kind of how we've looked in the tournament so far, obviously there's been a bit of a mixed reaction amongst fans, and there always is. But I think defensively we've been absolutely outstanding. And Liam quite rightly said, yeah, at times against Germany we got cut open, but they're all from our mistakes. No team has played us so far and genuinely cut us to ribbons by playing good quality football. Like, it's all been our own errors. Like, Kyle Walker sells a short pass, seems every game, and then puts us into a sticky situation. Sterling against Germany, their big chance for Thomas Muller comes from Sterling giving the ball away. It's not German precision. It's not Ukrainians playing superb football, or Czech Republic or anyone else. It's basically been all English errors that have given that opportunity to teams. So I'd have to say that so far defensively England done well. Maguire coming back into the team has been incredibly important. Not that Mings didn't do a good job, but Maguire just offers something completely different. So I think right now, obviously England on paper look like favourites for Denmark. There's always that side of caution. You don't want to get carried away. I don't, generally speaking, like to watch any of the build up towards the games, because it gets in my head and like England have got to win this. Like all the pundits have convinced me that, you know, it's a genuine, you know, walkover. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens. But England have played a good tournament so far, and long may that continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us nicely onto the semi-final previews. We'll start with the England game while we're on the topic. Obviously, it is the Wednesday night game, England v Denmark at Wembley, obviously with 60,000 expected to be in the stadium. So I just want to start a bit about the team selection. Liam, would you change anything from the team that played against Ukraine? Would you bring anyone in, or...?
I might have a biased perspective on this, but I do think it's valid. I'd start Henderson based on the fact that he's been in this situation before, obviously not at international level. But when you look at the England team, other than Sterling and if Mount starts in terms of, and Shaw, well, not Shaw, Walker, there's not a plethora of winners in there in terms of winning big trophies and going far in knockout competitions. Obviously, Shaw and Maguire have maybe won the odd trophy with Man United. Well, Maguire won, but Shaw's won the odd trophy with Man United. But Henderson's gone that step in a major tournament. We're talking Champions League. He's experienced. He can control the midfield. And I think the Denmark game's going to see us need to play a bit of a different style. I don't think we're going to just be able to frustrate teams by passing the ball about and out of possession, sitting back deep. And as you say, the odd mistake creeps in every now and then. I think the way that Denmark play, getting in behind in terms with the fullbacks and Damsgaard and Brathwaite dropping from the forward line into midfield for pockets in between midfield and defence could cause us problems, especially if we play two in midfield, because those people dropping back could outnumber us in midfield. So I would say we need a bit of a different style, and I think Henderson will be perfect in terms of being able to not really nurture the younger players, because obviously we know Calvin Phillips has been excellent, Declan Rice has been excellent. In their own right, they're excellent footballers, but I just think a more experienced head, someone who's been and won the big trophies, would be beneficial in this state. But then again, when they say when it's not broken, don't fix it. So when you've got a winning team, there's maybe not a massive need to change the team, although Sancho's come in, Foden's been playing, not for the last couple of games, but obviously Saka's played well as well, so maybe you see a change up there as well. But I think Sancho played really well against Ukraine. I won't be surprised if Grealish maybe gets his first start. So I think we'll see. But my one major change would probably be dropping one of Phillips or Rice for Henderson.
Yeah, interesting one. Yeah, I think obviously that's been one of the features of England's tournament. Really, he has rotated a lot, hasn't he? I mean, I think nobody saw Sancho starting that game the other night. It seemed to come from nowhere. Really, it makes you wonder whether it was because he knew that the transfer was on the kind of almost complete with Dortmund to Man United. Maybe that was a reason. Maybe he gave him the start to kind of give him the kick on, obviously after getting the move to Man United. But Rory, would you keep Sancho in the team, or would you go for someone like Saka or Grealish to come in?
You're asking the wrong person the thing here. I think I was actually really shocked to see that he was starting, but I was also pleased with regards to the Ukraine game. Probably just opportunity, because I think Saka had a bit of a knock, but then again I was surprised that he didn't start Rashford over Sancho, because I know Southgate has a soft spot for Rashford. But yeah, he played really well, I thought. So I think Sancho probably has done enough. But then again, whether Southgate sees Denmark are a bit more of a force going forward and then plays more of a safer option that maybe is slightly better going back the other way, who can cover a bit more. There's been chat about how Sancho's a bit lazy as a player, but I think that's a bit unfair, to be frankly honest, having watched him at Dortmund. I think he works quite hard. But there might be, a bit of versatility, a bit of cover might be required. So maybe Saka will get the nod again. I thought it was really good to see, especially there was one moment that really kind of summed it up for me against Ukraine, was where they had the ball in our area and it was a dangerous moment, and Mason Mount came back and made a really good interception and cleared the ball, and that's from your cam. That's from your centre attacking midfielder, and that shows great knowledge. So I thought that was really impressive. But yeah, Sancho probably would get the nod.
Yeah, just an interesting comment as well from Matteo that I just saw on there. I'm going to put it on the screen here. And Matteo, obviously, one of our Spanish viewers, says that, yeah, England is the only country where Henderson would make it at the top level. He wouldn't be good enough to be even professional in Spain. Sorry, but it's true, guys. Yeah. I'll come over to you, Liam, for that one. Well, what's your view on that one? Because obviously on the continent, they do have more technical kind of midfielders, don't they? But obviously you are a Liverpool fan. You watch him week in, week out. Well, would you agree with that?
No. In simple terms. I think Henderson doesn't get the respect he deserves. Obviously, Henderson at 2016 Euros was painful to watch. Even as a Liverpool fan, I'll admit that. It was sidewards and backwards passing. But I think since Klopp's come in, Henderson's found an extra level to his game. He's an excellent ball progressor. He drives the team forward. He's good in that box-to-box role. He's got good defensive awareness. Maybe he's not the best goal scorer from midfield, and he's not going to get you 10 assists a season, which again I'm sure in Spain is what you look for in midfielders. But Henderson for Liverpool has not really put a foot wrong, and in that time won 4 trophies, so I don't think you can really question his ability to make it a top level. If he's played at the top level in Europe and is captain of a team that's been European and world champions, I don't think there's been much questioning over his qualities. Obviously, on the ball, he's one of the best in the Premier League. Off the ball, I think he's one of the best in the Premier League. In the past, maybe not, but in the last 2 or 3 seasons, maybe not last season, he struggled with injuries, but the 2 seasons before that, Henderson was untouchable as one of Liverpool's and the Premier League's best midfielders. So maybe other people don't get why I say that, but having watched him week in, week out and not missed a Liverpool game for nearly 3 seasons, I can't agree with that view.
Yeah. But I think he kind of splits opinion in England as well, though, doesn't he? I mean, I've heard a lot of people say before, like, I think my dad actually says that he can never understand why people rate him so much. But I agree with you, Liam, that I think he's improved a lot. I think when he first went to Liverpool, I was like, this guy is absolutely hopeless, when he first moved from Sunderland, but he seemed to get better and better. Obviously, particularly under the Klopp guidance, I think. And I think also his leadership as well is massive as well. And that is important for an England team. We like good leaders in a team, And I think obviously that is massive. And he does have great leadership as well as having quality as well. But whether he should start, that's a tough one, really, because obviously Phillips has been really, really good. And so has Rice, really, in the tournament. But I think Rice is another one that kind of splits opinion a little bit as well. I've heard some people say that they don't see why he's so highly rated. But personally, I'm a big fan of Rice. So yeah, it's we'll just have to see what Gareth Southgate goes with on Wednesday. So yeah, just to get your predictions, guys, on this one. Rory, what if you had to go for a prediction right now, what would you go for in this semi-final?
2-1 England.
2-1, okay. And so you're going for the first goal conceded by England at the tournament, yeah?
Yeah, going for a Martin Braithwaite header.
Yeah, it's going to be Yusuf Poulsen. He's back.
Oh, Poulsen scores a worldie or something like that, yeah. Something like that.
It's going to be a Bundesliga guy that does it, isn't it? Yeah. And Liam, what would you go for?
I'm stuck, really. As I said, I've got that little thing in the back of my mind that thinks for Denmark, I just feel this is a free hit, really. Nobody expected them to get this far with the belief running through their squad. Obviously, England have got that. There's a lot of camaraderie in the squad, but after what happened and the adversity of that with everything that happened to Eriksen, thankfully he's okay now, but that's going to spur them on, and it has done. We've seen with the performances recently. Obviously, again, you talk about Spain in terms of performance levels. Can they replicate it again? I'm not sure whether they'll do that against England, but I would expect them to give us a game. I'm going to say it's decided on penalties. I'm going to sit on the fence. I'm not. My head tells me that it's going to be a difficult game, and I'm not sure on the scoreline. But in terms of my heart saying England will win, obviously, but I just don't want to underestimate them, because for me, in terms of playing big teams, Denmark played Belgium and played really well. De Bruyne came on and changed that game. If it wasn't for De Bruyne, I think Denmark would have won that game. Yeah. So in terms of against big teams, they've not looked out of the depth. Obviously, Czech Republic have been a really good side. First half, pretty dominant. Second half, it was all Czech Republic, but they showed the ability to sit back and hold the lead. So Denmark are a good team. I'll say it's decided on penalties, but if I have to go with anyone to win, I'll say England win on penalties.
I can't take penalties. I've had too much heartbreak from penalties in my lifetime. Even extra time, as soon as I see it go to extra time, then it's like, no. But I'm actually going to go for 2-0 England. I think for the first time in a long, long time, maybe ever since I've been following football, I'm actually confident in this England team. I think obviously they've got the quality. I agree with Rory that I really, really like the defence at the moment. And I think Pickford, despite his very average performances for Everton, I think for England is just absolutely outstanding, to be honest with you. It makes you wonder whether Pickford really, maybe he should go to a Man United or someone like that, because I think he's kind of made for the big level. I think a team like Everton maybe is just not motivated enough. I don't know, really. Playing for 10th or 11th place is probably not the most entertaining thing in the world, really, when you're used to playing for titles for England, So I think, but for me, for England, he's been our best goalkeeper probably since David Seaman, maybe. I would go as far to saying that,
Big claims.
But I don't rate him for Everton at all, but I think for England, he's
terrible for
me. Okay, so let's quickly go over, obviously, the second semi-final as well, which is Spain versus Italy. So, Liam, what do you think the big talking points of this one are going to be? And, who do you think is the more likely winner here?
I think Italy are the more likely winner because in terms of big talking points, I'll keep it short and sweet. I think there's questions over Spain in front of goal. Obviously, Rory touched on the interchange in defence between Laporte, Pau Torres and Eric Garcia. They can't really decide on a specific centre-back partnership, which could hurt them again against such a informed flying Italian attack of Insigne, either one of Chiesa and Berardi and Immobile at the top of that trio. So I fancy Italy. If Spain can really turn their ability in front of goal on, and as Rory mentioned, being clinical, if they can be clinical, Spain have got a chance. But Spain have been blowing hot and cold for me in terms of they can stick 5 past Croatia in 120 minutes and then can't even score from their own doing against Switzerland and have to win on penalties. Switzerland are a good side, no disrespect, but you would expect Spain to beat them within 90 minutes by a goal or two. So because Italy have been so consistent and even in the difficult games, they've managed to find a way to win, even if it is in extra time. I just fancy them a lot more than I fancy Spain. But then again, Spain have got some excellent players. I mean, Thiago's not even playing. So that tells you something. Some of the riches they've got on their bench and some of the riches they've got not even playing in the squad. So Spain are capable. We know they can be clinical in front of goal when they are. They're one of the most difficult sides to play against. But I just think that Italy are so well drilled and played so well that I just can't look past them, to be honest.
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone I've heard talk about this game has said they think Italy are going to win. Yeah, I think usually, obviously, over the last 10 years, we've been used to being on the shoe being on the other side of the foot, obviously with like most people would have said Spain would have won, but this year it just looks like all Italy, doesn't it? But I think it could be a little bit dangerous, really, for the Italians. I don't think they'll be thinking it's a foregone conclusion, that's for sure. Spain have still got dangerous players. They've always got that performance in them where they can just batter a team. Obviously despite the kind of difficulties in front of goal in some games, they have scored 5 twice this tournament. Do you know what I mean? And they have actually scored. They've scored 4 goals more than England as well, despite having played 1 extra time. So yeah, bear that in mind as well. So yeah, and Rory, what would your prediction be for this one then?
Probably replicate and repeat much what you two have already said. I think the only thing that maybe we've not picked up on is the fact that Italy will obviously be without Spinazzola, who's probably been their best player, joint best player perhaps. And he gives them a lot going forwards. And similarly, I think on the right-hand side, I think their fullbacks have been really good for them, Italy, so far. So it's whether, they're able to replicate that again and get that kind of drive forwards. Because if they get pinned back and Spain get a lot of the ball, then it could be a lot closer than potentially it could or should be. But I will say narrowly 2-1 Italy as well.
Okay, I'm going to go for 1-1 and Italy to win on penalties with this one. I think it'll be closer than what people think, and I think Spain will kind of keep it a bit tighter in this game and probably defend a little bit better than what they've done in large parts of the tournament. Okay, yeah. So obviously the final part of the show is going to be answering your questions. Okay, so obviously we've had a few questions on the live feed, which I'll come to later, but I'm just going to start with the questions that we got on Twitter. So we're going to start with a couple of questions from Dave Pearson. So I'm going to ask this one to you, Liam. Who has scored your goal of the tournament so far? Which one stands out? It's a hard one.
The Bundesliga fella, I can't remember his name. I'm joking. Patrick Schick, that's ridiculous. I mean, to score from there with that, the ability to curve it and get the right dip and everything on it from 55 yards out. I don't even think we need to really even continue the question. I think we all know it's Patrick Schick's goal. There's been some nice goals. Modric shot outside the foot, really nice as well. But I just don't think anything can beat that shit goal, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that was pretty clear from the minute it went in, to be honest with you. Yeah, that was for sure. Like, even though it was on the third or the fourth day of the tournament, I think we all knew that nothing was going to beat that, really. Yeah. And one for Rory, who has been your player of the tournament so far?
Player of the tournament, that's a pretty tricky one, actually. I thought up to the point of getting knocked out, I thought Lukaku was having an outstanding tournament. But so far, I mean, I probably have to say Sterling. I think he's been outstanding player for England, been the driving force, been trying things, scoring goals at important times. Right now, no names really spring to mind as a standout player. Obviously, Ronaldo at the moment is top goal scorer, joint top goal scorer, I think. But in kind of outfield play, can't say he was outstanding. Trying to think of the other teams that we've had so far that were still in it. Italy have obviously had lots of good individual performances, but I think their team as a whole has done well. So, yeah, probably Sterling, I'd have to say, at a push.
Yeah, it is a tough one because obviously there's been a lot of really good players, but maybe not so many like really head and shoulders above the rest, you know. Yeah. Okay, and one from Liam from Paul McGarrigy as well. So there's two parts to this question, so I'll ask you the first one first. So it's about France's exit, actually, obviously as the French expert. Paul says, was it complacency after the Pogba goal to blame for the France exit, or do you think blaming it on an attitude problem is too simplistic?
I mean, I don't think Pogba's dance after the goal helped things, to be honest. But I don't know. It's hard to say really what France's game came down to. Before we came on air, me and you were speaking about the adversity of that day, just how mad it was. And, you know, some things like that just happen in football. Obviously, it's hard to put a finger on what that sort of thing is, but there is things that come into play. I mean, Mbappe misfiring pretty much the whole tournament, despite me predicting beforehand that he was going to win the Golden Boot and be best player at the tournament. Obviously, my French bias comes into that. But when your key player isn't his off the ball play was good. He was still penetrating in behind them with the defence, with his runs, bringing Benzema into play as well. So that aspect of his game was good, but in terms of in front of goal, it looked like Morata. He just couldn't score. Even Morata's been better than in this tournament. I mean, I'm surprised I'm saying that. Obviously, there was all the stuff off the pitch as well. Injuries and help. Hernandez was missing. Dembele was missing. Digne was missing. So a long injury list as well. Coleman went off injured in extra time despite trying to prove to everyone that he's not injury prone by playing on longer. There was fights between parents in the stands. I don't know. It's all it's a mixture of things, really. I don't want to sound like I'm not answering the question. I just think there's lots of things that came into play, and with how that day was, it just didn't surprise me in the slightest. I said when Mbappe was stepping up, obviously you guys can't quote me on that, but who I was watching with the game with, he's missed this just because he didn't look confident. He wasn't confident for the tournament. So the main thing was probably in terms of really how the team was. Obviously, the forward line, Griezmann, Benzema and Mbappe had never really played together, whereas Griezmann, Giroud and Mbappe really had a massive in terms of connection, in terms of being able to bring each other into play. There was the fight between Giroud and Mbappe. You don't pass to me. You're too greedy. Although most of Mbappe's assists for France are for Giroud, so I don't understand that. But even still, they were just a mix of things. I don't think the switch to 3-4-3 helped either. The midfield didn't really know what it was doing. Rabiot's useless as a left back. Just lots of things didn't help. Although the injuries, when you lose your two senior left backs, mean that you have to make that switch. Although Leo Dubois could play left back again,
yeah,
it's hard to answer. It really is hard to answer.
Yeah.
Mix of things to say.
Yeah. And I think obviously Switzerland as well. I mean, they played really well. They scored some good goals. I mean, especially Seferovic, he was just amazing, really, wasn't he? Like he's not the kind of most popular player. He's one of those kind of target men forwards that sometimes can look pretty clumsy, but he had a really, really good game that day. Yeah, that's for sure. And yeah, just another one, Liam, as well, related to the topic. Dan Green has written in to say, does Liam know if there's any truth to the rumours of infighting between players? Have you heard anything about that?
There was truth in the fact that Mbappe wanted to hold a press conference about Giroud's comments in terms of him being greedy. I know that much. And then when you've got the, in terms of players' parents not exactly getting on in the stands either, that doesn't help things. But I do know there was tension between Giroud and Mbappe right in the early stages of the tournament and even before the tournament started, but I think that fizzled down. One surprising thing is that Benzema and Giroud seem to get on, despite the fact that Benzema called himself a F1 car and Olivier Giroud a go-kart. But again, that was interesting to see. But all I know about fighting was that Mbappe was really unhappy with the comments made by Giroud and asked Didier Deschamps to do a press conference in terms of, in the build-up to a game and comment on those. But he denied that request, and by all accounts, it got pushed on the carpet and they got on with the tournament. But tension in a camp doesn't help things, so maybe that's another deciding factor into why the knockout came at that such a premature stage.
Yeah, I always think with France, they always either win the tournament or they have big problems with infighting.
Yeah.
It's always either one of the two, isn't it? Like, obviously, I remember like back in 98 and 2000, they won both those tournaments.
Yeah.
Then in the World Cup 2002 was just a disaster. I think they had a lot of infighting.
Yeah.
And obviously, as a couple of the guys have mentioned as well, Gary mentioned that they have a lot of problems Euro 2012 as well. Then obviously they win the World Cup.
They did have a good run in tournament.
It's always one or the two, isn't it? Yeah. But I think, to be honest, a lot of people thought Benzema was going to kind of cause a lot of the problems, but he was probably their player of the tournament, to be honest. He was really good, He seems to be getting better with age, to be honest. I think the last 2 or 3 seasons have been his best seasons of his career.
Yeah, aging like a fine wine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so just moving on, we've got a couple more questions. Yeah, one for Rory. Are fans and pundits, obviously this was from Chris Saunders, are fans and pundits underestimating this Denmark side?
Probably like we all are, mainly because obviously all the build up and all the coverage that we're seeing is of course based off the English bias. So there isn't much kind of look towards Denmark, what they've achieved so far. I think that's only kind of fair from country to country. If from Germany's point of view, from France's point of view, what are their papers going to be covering? They're going to be covering, oh, we can't wait to watch England win, or France or Germany win, or blah blah blah. So I think that's just the natural way of things of the world. There should be recognition to what Denmark have achieved. They've got good players. They've overachieved so far this tournament and taken the most of what opportunity has presented them with regards to the way the draw has panned out. So I think the press and England fans will underestimate them. I think the good thing for England is that Gareth Southgate and England football team won't underestimate them. So Gareth will do his research, of course. He'll be thorough in building the team up for the game on Wednesday, and building a team and presenting a team that will be able to tackle Denmark's threat and also be able to pose a threat towards them as well. So I think with all the kind of coverage, it's easy to get carried away. But I think on the other hand of things, England will be professional and won't make the silly mistake of underestimating them themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then just one that we've already kind of touched on a little bit, but from Ben Morris, who's going to be the Golden Boot winner and the player of the tournament? So obviously at the moment we've got Schick and Ronaldo tied on 5, but I think they give it to the guy with the most assists, don't they? Which is Ronaldo at the minute, because he got 1 assist. Do you think there's anyone that's still in it that could potentially win the Golden Boot, like maybe Kane and Sterling both on 3 goals, Liam?
I think if Kane really takes that goal against Germany as a motivational push, like it looked like against Ukraine, maybe Kane can make a push for it, but then again, you're relying on him getting an assist, which I don't think he has. Sterling, I don't know if we're going to be relying on Sterling too much for goals in the last 2 games. I know he was the big game player to begin with, but I don't think that Kane's found his scoring boots. He could be the deciding factor. I think it'll stay with Ronaldo, to be honest, based on the fact that it's decided on when goals are level, the facts assist, and as you say, he's got that assist, so I think he'll go to Ronaldo, to be honest.
Yeah, and player of the tournament, obviously the player of the tournament always goes to a finalist, so it's unlikely to be Ronaldo or Schick, despite the fact they're probably going to end up with the top scorers. So anyone that you think could potentially win player of the tournament, Liam?
I mean, for me, it would be Schick, based on the fact that Czech Republic have scored 6 goals at the tournament. He scored 5 of them. Czech Republic were never expected to get to a quarter-final. He scored the goal of the tournament. I don't think you need to say much more, but obviously, as you say, it's probably going to be someone in the last 4, if not the last 2. I think Sterling's been good in front of goal, but other than Ukraine, I don't think he's been excellent in terms of off the ball. If we're talking performances, I don't think Sterling's really put in stellar performances. He's been the man in front of goal, which is what we've needed. Obviously, that's a big thing. You've got to take that into account. But if we're talking performances, I wouldn't say Sterling. The Italy team's hard to really pick out a standout player, because it's a really it always seems to be a team unit with the Italians. Obviously there's big names, but there's no Ronaldo or Mbappe or Pogba or Harry Kane that other teams have got, world superstars. It's all players of a high quality, but they're all buying into the same thing. So it's hard to name one from Italy. Joachim Meyer's in with a shout. I mean, I think he's been fantastic, but I don't think they're going to give it to a left back that plays for Denmark. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ronaldo gets it, to be honest, just because of the fact he's top goal scorer, even though the fact that he went out in round of 16. But it's going to be someone from England if we win it, probably Sterling, because of the goals in the early games. But to be quite honest, I don't know who's going to get it. I know I went round the house there, but I don't know. I just think it's really hard because there's not been one standout player. You'd say Ronaldo if Portugal had made it far, but obviously that round of 16 exit probably holds back that one a bit. Maybe the same with Schick, although Czech Republic overachieved, so I'd say Schick.
Yeah, he definitely could get it because obviously they made the quarters. I agree that one of the Danish guys like a Damsgaard or a Mæhle, especially if they can beat England, then I think one of their guys would probably be favourite. But as you say, Italy have had so many good ones, Chiesa, Berardi, Immobile. Even Bonucci at the back has been a colossus, really. He always is, though, really, isn't he? But I mean, Spinazzola, they've had pretty much their entire team has been quality, really, I think. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of their guys, though, to be honest. But then, as you say, like Kane, if Kane or Sterling can get another goal and England make the final, then either of them could get it easily. I think, to be honest with you, Luke Shaw has had an amazing tournament as well. Like he got 2. What is he on 3 assists now for the tournament? So maybe if England make the final, he could. It's very unlikely, but because usually they give it to strikers and attacking mids, don't they? Really, but I mean, we'll have to see with that one. Yeah. Okay. I know we've gone on quite a while, so I'm just going to ask one more question. So John Fleming says, "Who's winning it, Italy or England?" Rory.
Well,
Well, I think we talk about the English bias, no mention of Denmark or Spain even in there.
yeah, I love that confidence. Actually, yeah, great question. Well, without trying to go too in depth about it or overthink it too much, I just think England are going to win it. I think there's a certain difference compared to the World Cup. This England team have gone on a lot further, got a lot more experience. Again, the way that the draw has opened up for us is similar to obviously how the World Cup panned out, and I think they'll go the whole hog and win it. I think everything just falling into place. Pickford's breaking records in goal and playing brilliantly. The back 4 or 5 is playing really well, as solid as ever. That defensive midfield unit for me looks untouchable. It goes to show everything that both Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice were both on yellow cards for that Ukraine game. You think you don't even need to play either of them, and he went for both of them. I think that goes to show a lot. And then the attacking talent is just ridiculous. Like we've barely seen Sancho, and he got a start. Grealish is coming in and out of bits and bobs. Everyone thought the main man was going to be Phil Foden, and he started the first 2 games and then has kind of faded since then. So yeah, too much talent, and I think they'll do the job for me. So yeah, England to win it. Why not?
Yeah, good shout. Yeah, and you, Liam, any other suggestions?
I'm going to say Denmark. I'll leave it at that. I'll come back on and explain it when they win the tournament.
Well, that's what have you on before the final, and question your prediction. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much everything we got for you guys today. Yeah, so I'm just gonna. So remember to follow our Twitter. Yeah, remember to follow our Twitter @OverTheBarFB. Remember to check out our kind of main website, otbfootball.net, which is like the centerpiece of all of our stuff. Remember, obviously, Euro 2020 will be coming to a close, next Sunday. So, moving on from there, we are going to be continuing with the Bundesliga and League 1 and League 2 stuff. We're also going to have a League 2 show that we plan on starting as well. Obviously, me and Rory will be doing the Bundesliga show. Obviously, keep checking out Liam's League 1, so League 1. The French league stuff as well. He does regular roundups on that. So yeah, remember to keep kind of checking out our stuff. That's for sure. Okay, so yeah, thanks a lot, Liam, for joining us. It was great to have you on again. It's always good to hear your stuff. Yeah, and let's hope, guys, it's coming home. See you next time. See you before the final.